New Mexico plays Colorado State. 1:07 is the kickoff time right here. It's on Altitude. This is our fourth and final game on Altitude. The last two are on CBS Sports Network. We are after the week off. We actually dropped. We went from a tie to third for a tie to fourth because we're 3-2. Hawaii is 4-2. They are in third. San Diego State and Boise State are tied for first at 4-1. Jeff isn't here, but he would want me to remind you, Boise State Stadium is under construction, so we have that issue for that tie. With that opening statement, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. Opening statement, and then to Sean.
Excited to be back at home this week. A big opportunity to play, a Colorado State team that we have not beaten in a long time. I think they're certainly a capable team, even though I know this year has not gone the way they would have liked it to. You look no further than their game against Fresno State, where they got after Fresno State pretty well, and then Fresno State comes back a few weeks later and was the only team to beat Boise State in the conference. So it's a dangerous team. I think they pose some problems on defense. They're not afraid. They were never afraid to zero pressure and come after you. And I think you're a staff right now where your head coach is let go. You have no reason to be cautious, but they definitely create some pressure problems because they'll bring 6-7 rushers at a time. I think Long is a really good player. Their linebacker, we recruited him at Idaho. He was actually committed to us at Idaho, and then he had the chance to go to Colorado State and took that opportunity. But really good defense. Definitely not the team that you want to play from behind against, which was what happened in the Fresno State game. Hopefully we'll have a great turnout and a great crowd. I think the weather looks good. It's going to be in the high 60s now. 1 o'clock game. As good a weather as you could ask for in November. So a lot of different ticket promotions they have where you can, if you're a public service, a firefighter, healthcare worker, police officer, you can get free tickets. If you bring in cans of food for a food drive, you can get free tickets. So if you want to get to this game, kids get in free. There's a way you can get to this game pretty cheaply if you want to come. So we'd love to have you here.
You mentioned you guys recruited Long out of high school and all that when you were at Idaho and all that. What stood out about him kind of as a player then in terms of when you guys were recruiting him?
Just athletic. I thought he was instinctual. I thought he didn't get blocked very often, could either get off blocks or just avoid blocks. Good movement, good lateral quickness, and thought he was going to be a really good player, and he has turned out to be a really good player.
It's only a 2-game sample size, and one of them is kind of weird because they didn't have an opportunity to really change much. They didn't have a bye in between when they made the change. Do you see any kind of considerable differences to what they were doing before, or where do you kind of see that kind of change show up?
I feel like maybe a little bit more commitment to running the ball. Maybe a little bit more tight ends, a little bit more bigger personnel. I mean, they have the Beers kid who's a good player. They're using a little bit more, 2 tight end sets, a little bit more 12 personnel. I think early in the year you saw a little bit more of the air raid principles and 10 personnel. They still have done some of that, but I think they're doing that a little bit more, and they're certainly not afraid to pressure. They're pretty aggressive, not afraid to go for it on 4th down. I think we got to be on guard against fake field goals, fake punts, surprise on sides. They got nothing to lose.
Coach, yesterday it came out that Louisville's head coach had been threatened online by a fan who was upset after a loss. With your profile and the fact that you've become the face of this program, have you received anything like that?
No, and I'm pretty fortunate. We've had pretty good years, and I think they're having a good year. They're ranked in the top 25. Probably somebody lost money gambling on them or something. But I think that's a negative. About both social media, about I think gambling ties into that a lot. I've heard a lot of stories of players getting harassed by gamblers who lose a game after somebody misses a kick or misses a throw, that type of thing. So that's a downside. It's a shame because, like you'd say, Brahm's done a good job there too. It's not just the winning is the key. He's had a really good year, and they're ranked in the top 25 up until that point. So, it's a shame, and I'm glad that they are catching those people and prosecuting those people.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, one of the men's basketball players here talked about the social media harassment that he received, including a gambling aspect. Is there an educational thing you have with your players to talk about the pitfalls of social media and the contact they have with fans?
Yeah, we talk about social media and how you want to be. We probably take it more of the the atmosphere of you got to be careful what you're posting on social media and not do anything that negatively affects you as a person and really as a brand, because a lot of these guys are building a brand through that now with NIL. But I think that's another good reminder. In general, I don't think social media is great for one's mental health, and I do think the time that I have been in coaching, I think you're seeing more and more mental health issues with student athletes, and we addressed that with our team. What happened with Noland, I'm not sure I pronounce it right, with the Cowboys who passed away last week, and just a good reminder to if guys are struggling, to make sure they get help, and for players to keep an eye on their teammates and try to point guys out if they notice a guy struggling, because you would have thought that guy probably is in the top of the world. He's a second-round draft pick out of a Group of 5 school, and had a touchdown on a block punt recently. But obviously, he had some demons he was dealing with, and But I do think social media is generally not a positive for guys' mental health.
And then lastly, last time this team beat New Mexico or beat Colorado State, a lot of these guys were just learning how to add and subtract in grade school, and then you're outside of your punter who's probably getting AARP benefits by now. But what is it about this streak against Colorado State? And this is probably the last time you're going to see him for a while too.
Yeah, I don't know. Did we play him last year?
We did play them last year, lost 17-6.
Yeah.
That was their game twice on that.
It's another one of those things. I mean, we have some guys who maybe have played against these guys once or twice, and then we got 70-some guys who've never played against them. So, Signetti kind of said it last week. They had never won at Penn State, but this team has never played, Colorado State. So this will be our first matchup against these guys. And again, I do think our team has shown a good knack for doing things that haven't been done in a long time, whether it's getting bowl eligible for the first time since 2016 or beating a Power 4 school since the first time since 2008, selling out University Stadium since the first time since 2007. Love to add another thing to our list of doing something that hasn't been done in a long time around here.
As a player or as a coach, assistant or head coach, have you ever experienced a losing streak like this or been aware of one? And was that motivation for you at all?
Yeah, when I first got to South Dakota State, I don't think it was quite 13, but it might have been like 8 straight times or something they'd lost to North Dakota State. And the first year in 2016, we broke that and beat them at their place. So, I do think it's a little different. I think in that stage, it was really, it was all the same players coming back in 2016. There wasn't the portal. It was the same team. It was, your seniors had lost to them 3 years and played in those games. So I thought at that time it was really important trying to build belief. I really don't feel like we're going to go into this game with any doubt that we can beat this team because they beat us 13 straight. And that's a product of, one, us having a lot of new players, and then number two, just the fact that they're not having as good of a year and we're having a pretty good year. But you certainly can't. You see every year late in the season teams who are 2-7 beat teams who's 6-3, and it usually comes from the team who's 6-3 not preparing well and playing sloppy and giving that other team opportunities. And that's what we got to guard against. We got to play our best football. I think if we play our best football in this game, we'll be fine. If we get sloppy with turnovers and give them a lot of opportunities, or sloppy with their communication and give up a bunch of big plays, certainly this is a team that can beat us just like they beat Fresno earlier.
Coach, you talked about how this bye week was very important for as far as scouting, as far as it would be a very busy weekend for the UNM football program. Any general notes about kind of what you guys saw during that stretch of games?
Yeah, we saw some good players that we think are going to help us. We're going to have some guys on campus this weekend. This will actually be a pretty busy official visit weekend because we're getting pretty close to December 3rd and our signing day. Sometimes it's fine when guys aren't quite the right fit, whether it's for what we're looking for, what they're looking for, and that's fine. I want guys who want to be here and guys who are excited about it. But it was a good weekend of recruiting.
And you talked about how aggressive the Colorado State defense is. They kind of run like that 3-3-5.
They're very multiple. I mean, they'll give you 4-man fronts. They'll give you 3-man fronts. They'll give you stuff that looks more like 3-3-5, stuff that looks like 3-4. I mean, they do a lot of stuff. Because of that, I think they can cause some problems getting guys free. I think there's also times where they screw things up because they do so much. Maybe they don't execute it all perfectly, and that's led to them giving up some plays as well. But they're very multiple. We got to execute well, and again, probably my biggest worry in this game is turning guys loose free to the quarterback and that creating turnovers, which is what happened a lot in that Fresno State game.
And then Jackson talked about it during the Utah State game, kind of that you feed off the energy, when you're on defense, and then of course during the NMSU game, how everybody they all got excited from seeing that giant crowd of people. Again, I know you talked about it, but the importance of having a big fan turnout for this game.
It's huge, and again, I think we're, the football gods have helped us with it being, not 27 degrees or something, but there's not a lot of obstacles to being there this Saturday. It's not very expensive. The weather's not awful. You got to want to be there. And again, I hope that our fan base, wants to be there. I'll be bummed because, if we have 20,000, that makes me think that maybe 17,000 of those fans at New Mexico State were New Mexico State fans who came, and maybe that's why they're not here. But I'm hoping the product we're putting out there, people want to come and support us. And I kind of stand by what I said. I'll be disappointed if it's less than 25,000. I think we need to invest, and the fans can make a difference. I thought even the good news is the people who come are your most passionate fans. So even that 20,000 fan crowd against Colorado State, I thought had an effect, and they probably forced them to call a timeout and a false start during that game. So I want you to come and make a difference and have fun, and it's going to be a fun Saturday.
That means that I just looked, 4,500 tickets were sold in the last 36 hours.
Okay, that's good. And, you can go watch Lobo Hoops plays that night on TV. You can go, tailgate, watch the football game, go celebrate, watch them get a win Saturday night. I know the soccer team's got a big game. They're in the Western Conference semifinal. It's a big Saturday for Albuquerque sports.
Talked about the game plan for the open week, and here it is, right before the final 3 games of the season. Talk about the benefits of that.
Yeah, I liked how our bye weeks, set up. I think we're going to be pretty fresh. We've continued to kind of cut down practice as the season has gone on, in the goals of staying fresh. And that's, I think my job as a head coach to manage that. I think coordinators, and I probably thought this way when I was a young O-line coach, you always want to cover everything and make sure we've gotten a million reps and, repped every blitz against that. But I think you can have diminishing returns if guys' legs are getting heavy. And Coach Heim does a great job. We have 2 different ways we track the speed of our players. We have, some of the guys wear the catapult devices to track the speed, and then we also do it off of a computer system called telemetry. And we had the most, plays where guys traveled 16 miles an hour or more in the UNLV game than any game all year. And so I think that's a combination of, we're doing a good job staying fresh, but also we're playing hard. And it's funny when you look at that, there's a pretty good correlation. Our top 3 games where we've had the most high-speed actions this year is UNLV, Utah State, and UCLA. And you could probably make a pretty good case. Those are our 3 best games, or our 3 best wins. So we got to keep the guys fresh, and we got to play our asses off on Saturday, running around.
Coach, how much does your style of play, your aggression going forward in your own end zone or your side of the field help now that games are getting more important as you move forward? You're 6-3, has some things to play for.
Yeah, I think teams have to be on guard. I mean, I'm sure Colorado State's spending some time with their punt, block unit, punt return unit on some fakes this week and making sure they're sound against those things. So, I don't mind taking calculated risks on things, especially when I think things look good in practice and we have a good opportunity. But we'll continue to be aggressive.
And from just a mental mindset, the players now seeing that aggressive play, how much does that help them prepare, as these games get quote unquote bigger?
Well, I think we're a confident team, and again, I think you have to guard against. You can't let confidence affect your preparation because even though we are a confident team, we should be a confident team. We got to understand, that because we have 6 wins and this team has 2 wins, we don't start the game with a 6-point lead. It means nothing about this game on Saturday. It's all about how we play on Saturday, and that's been a message we've been talking about all week. And I thought we had a solid practice yesterday. I'm expecting us to practice even better today. As far as urgency and effort and tempo, and clean up some little details so we execute well. Because I do feel, this is a game where I think if we play really well, we're gonna have a great chance of winning. We got to focus on controlling what we control and play really well.
Coach, when you have a bye week, can you tell today the benefits of that bye week, or does the game have to get underway before you can get a feel for how the team responded?
I don't know if you necessarily see it right away on tape. And, again, when we practiced last Wednesday, and then we had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. I think your first practice coming back after a 4-day break sometimes is not as sharp as, your fourth practice in 4 days where you're building up to something. So I think we'll probably notice it more, on Saturday and things. We kind of have a bonus day on our preparation this week. So I think I think it will have an added benefit. I don't know if I came away from practice, yesterday saying, man, we look refreshed or anything, but I think we're going to see it on Saturday, the speed we play with.
Coach, you talked about the bunch of firsts you guys have had this year. You guys are bowl eligible. I mean, you guys are on a 3-game winning streak. That can sometimes, you could see them, your team taking your foot off the gas pedal a little bit. Did you see it in the bye week in practice this week? Are you liking the mentality of this team? Do you see that fight that they're just going to keep pushing through,
Yeah, I think we got to keep bringing it out of them, because I think that's probably human nature. Back like the cavemen and stuff when they went out hunting and, they killed like 3, elk or whatever, and then they had like a stockpile of elk, sitting in their cave. They probably relaxed a little bit and said, yeah, I got enough food for a while. I don't got to go kill more elk. So I think that is like a human nature that has been through men for time. So we got to fight that a little bit. And I think that's, really good coaches, guys who I study like Saban. I mean, he was always working against complacency or feeling that, the elk are just going to lay down to you now because you killed one last week. They're not. This team's going to come out and try to ruin our season and salvage it and, play hard and play their tail off. And again, I thought, UNLV ended up getting after Colorado State, but if you watched the first 20 minutes of that game, they weren't getting after them. I thought Colorado State came out with a lot of fire and passion and had an early lead in the game and did that. And I expect them to do the same thing here. I mean, those are prideful guys. I think more than ever, now with the transfer portal, it probably gives you more motivation as a player, late in the year, because, you can't sulk and feel bad for yourself. You want to put out good film so the new coaches want you. So you might have value if you are going to leave the school because the coach left. And certainly the coaches are the same way. They want their position groups to play well so that they're catching the eyes of other coaches who see them on film and say, hey, even though that Colorado State staff might be scattering with the new head coach, their tight ends are pretty good or their D-line's pretty good and help you. So, we got to, make sure there's no complacency and that we understand that we have, a challenge no matter who we're playing, and we got to play well on Saturday.
So you talked earlier about kind of what your defense needs to look out for them offensively. I know they're great in the red zone. Getting to the red zone's a little tough, but just kind of overall, how do you think how are you liking the matchup defensively from you guys? You know what I'm saying?
I like our matchup. I think we got to do a great job stopping the run and making them one-dimensional. I think they've had, solid quarterback play. I don't know if their quarterback is quite the dynamic threat that like we saw last week with Calandria. So I'm hoping that we can get pressure. They have given up some sacks. I think they've given up about 25 sacks on the year. So I think if we can get them in some third and predictable situations, hopefully our D-line can win and we can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Coach, I was going to ask you what your message was to the team to keep them motivated the last 3 games, but obviously it's to keep chasing that elk. So my next question is, what your goal before the year obviously was to be bowl eligible. Now that you are, what are your personal goals for the team as you guys end the regular season?
We're kind of taking it week by week. Again, I think getting to 7 wins is big because 7 wins really guarantees you're having a winning season, which we certainly don't have that guaranteed left. You could still finish 6 and 7 when you're 6 and 3. So I think that's the biggest step in front of us, and then continuing to extend that we're in the race. We don't control our own destiny. But, I told the team with what happened last week, there's going to be a 2-loss team in the conference championship. It's kind of goofy, all the tiebreakers and stuff. It might end up going to computer rankings and stuff if it's not head-to-head and all that. So I do think how you play matters. And I didn't even know. Like I read the computer rankings that it's based on. I never even heard of some of them, so I don't even know what they're based on. But I imagine, they could be about winning and margin of score. They could be about your yards, your yard per play differential, all those things. But I know, computers are pretty smart these days. The better we play, I'm sure the computers will like it more than just eking out a win or something. So I think we're motivated to not just win this game, but play really well, play our best football.
Obviously, Brousseau, like number 8, has kind of been their main guy, at quarterback really since kind of the end of the non-conference and all that too. But they have played Curry, I think number 3 and all that. How do you kind of prepare for both guys in this spot, and what are you kind of expecting there?
Yeah, Curry I think has a little bit more athleticism and stuff, but I think we have to be ready for whoever they put in the game. Again, I don't, we got to be ready for everything and how they adjust. And again, I think when you have teams like this late in the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they have some new wrinkles they haven't shown us. Again, they have nothing to lose, so you got to be ready for it all.
Have you ever been in a spot like this where you have been like kind of on a an interim staff and you have been kind of in a nothing to lose spot and all that as well?
Yes, I don't know if I've. When I was an assistant coach, I've been with some coaches who got let go after the season, so maybe not that we were true interim coach, but I've been at some times where we kind of knew the writing was on the wall. This was the end of the road, and I think sometimes when you make these changes, it takes a little of the pressure off because people aren't looking around, what's going to happen, and that type of thing. So I do think they're dangerous teams.
And then Abraham, will he be good to go for this week?
Still not sure yet. I think we'll have to make a decision in the next couple of days, see how he is able to practice, but figure out on probably by Thursday.
And then Lobstein and Keegan, are those guys that you're expected to be available this week?
Yeah, at this point, yes, but still getting treatment, bringing them along, and no more later in the week after we get through practice today and tomorrow.
Anybody else? One last question. Okay, Sean, go ahead.
You mentioned, earlier kind of about, some of the zero pressure stuff, doing a lot of the pressure packages they put, but they haven't really generated a ton of sacks. I think they're bottom of the conference in that. Why have you kind of, just watching them, why have you kind of seen that struggle to just kind of get those final conversion into sacks?
I think they're not afraid to get everybody up in there, so it's not like they're coming from depth and disguising it. I mean, they bring everyone down, which I do think forces a lot of quick, ill-advised throws. Certainly, they've done a decent job of getting turnovers. I think they're maybe -1 on turnover margin, but they've probably, created, 12, 14. I don't know, I saw the number more than us. I think they've created some turnovers on missed throws where the quarterback knows pressure's coming, know there's on-block guys, and throws it up ill-advised, which, in some ways is even more valuable than a sack to get the ball back. I don't think. I do think their scheme is more about getting guys to come free through scheme than it is like guys winning one-on-one battles at a really, really high rate. Again, I don't know if there's one, rusher like the guy at Nevada where we were really worried about, and Nevada's other rusher is pretty good, where we really keyed into those guys. I think it's more of their collective scheme that gives you problems and make sure that you're counting things right and you're not leaving somebody unblocked. And sometimes you have to leave somebody unblocked, but you better make sure that's the guy the furthest away from the quarterback and not somebody right down the pipe.
All right, if there's no other questions, the meal is brats, which are Wisconsin things. So are you a mustard guy or a sauerkraut guy on your brat?
Mustard.
Mustard. There you go.
Thanks, fellas.